Man, it seems like there is no limit to the amount of insanity that we are exposed to today. It's getting out of hand, y'all. And I'm going to tell you a little story here because, I mean, some of y'all might find this kind of funny. I think it's kind of crazy, actually. And you may be able to relate with this because I know I'm not the only one to experience this. I know this is probably even more prevalent in the major cities and I would say populated areas, because where I live, as you can see, not very populated out here. I live way out in the country, and that's what makes this even more profound. So here's what happened. So a couple times a week I have to drive about 35 to 40 minutes from my house. I've got a little lake house out by the lake. I got to go out there and clean and stuff and, you know, cut the grass and that kind of stuff. So once, twice a week I drive out there. Well, the other day I was on my way down there and I passed through this little tiny town. It's literally a population of 179 people. And I look over to my left and I see a flock camera right there. That's kind of crazy because I'm sitting there thinking, like, what kind of crime are they going to be fighting in this little town? I mean, 179 people? Is it really that much of a concern? Well, then I get further out and there's another area I go through where there's a lot of Amish that live out there. So I'm driving through there and I look over again to my left. I don't know what it is about the left side of the road, but look over to my left and there's another flock camera right in the middle of an Amish community. And I'm sitting there scratching my head again. I'm like, what kind of crime are they fighting out here? I mean, at that point, being in that location, they're probably reading more horses' rear ends, I guess, than they are license plates. So what are they actually looking for? I mean, are they looking at the horses to make sure they have the proper brand on there so they make sure the horse isn't stolen? It doesn't make any sense to me. So then I get home later that night and I get online. I'm looking at dflock.com or .org or whatever it is. And I'm just looking around to see, how many of these flock cameras are in my immediate area. And I found out there are actually quite a few. Now, as far as, way out here in the middle of nowhere, there's not that many. But when you go further out into the city or you get closer to the cities and the towns, there are actually quite a few flock cameras in the middle of rural Kentucky where there's not a whole lot going on. There's not a whole lot of crime out here. So I'm wondering, why do they need all of this surveillance? And I've been hearing about flock cameras for a while, so this isn't anything really new to me. But seeing these cameras way out here in the middle of nowhere, it prompted me to start digging deeper and researching more into the flock camera phenomenon. And I'm now finding out that it's much worse than I originally thought. And that leads me to why I don't agree with it. So if you haven't been keeping up with this, there are a lot of things about flock that we should probably be pretty concerned about. Number one is that it's very easy to hack into these things. There's a guy on YouTube, I can't remember his name, but I'll flash it right up here on the screen. And he's been looking into this, and he found out that you could actually get into these flock cameras in less than a minute. I think it's actually like a matter of seconds. He's able to access these cameras, pull all the footage. You can actually alter the footage. You can delete stuff. You can add stuff in. It's very unsecure. And he brought this up to the flock company, which we'll get into in a second also. But they were very nonchalant about it. They didn't take his concerns very seriously at all. And they didn't address these concerns.
I understand that you're saying you've never been hacked, but it also sounds like if you leave the barn door open, people do have access to data. Can you kind of speak to that just a minute and help me understand?
This is a city council meeting in College Station, Texas, where city council members and citizens alike are sharing their concerns about the city's use of flock safety cameras. And of course, as usual, Flock Safety sends their best. Now, just for context, the Flock security vulnerabilities that they're referring to were popularized by my YouTube video, but they are formally filed with the National Vulnerability Database, which is funded and managed by the Department of Homeland Security. So enjoy what is quite possibly the most ridiculous response a company has ever had to security vulnerabilities.
Has Flock been hacked to date? No. The instances that the gentleman brought up earlier is a YouTuber and not a factual, in my opinion. representation of who you should be getting your information from on who gets hacked. And so I can send you direct sources to us as far as us responding to that. Outside of that, I'm not going to give much time to a YouTuber reported saying that our system has been hacked. Yeah.
So now it is very easy to access these cameras. And going back to who owns this company, it's actually owned and backed by Peter Thiel. And if you're not familiar with him, he is involved with Palantir. And Palantir basically has a government contract. And when you look into them, it sounds like what they're trying to do with both Palantir and Flock is enact a police state and a surveillance state. They want mass surveillance. And I think that's what a lot of this really comes down to. But the issue with these cameras isn't just the fact that they might be trying to use them for a police state. It's also the fact that all these people have access to these cameras. I'm talking about basically anybody. I mean, anybody in the department that owns these cameras can access the information. And we are now seeing that there are a lot of people accessing the information on these cameras for nefarious reasons and for the wrong reason. There are members of the police department that have been caught accessing the information to basically stalk women.
In just the last year, 5 Wisconsin officers have been arrested on Flock-related stalking charges. A Milwaukee officer this spring resigned after being accused of running the plates of his romantic partner and her ex almost 200 times in a 3-month span. But it wasn't the police who discovered him.
It was one of the women themselves researching through the website, Have I Been Flocked?
That site uses publicly available data from police departments to allow someone to search their plate. One of the alleged victims found Ayala had typed investigation under the reason for the search. And the Wisconsin Examiner found that for Wisconsin agencies in 2025, investigation was the most commonly used reason for Flock searches.
There are people in these departments that have accessed this information hundreds of times to spy on little girls' gymnastics and community pools where, again, kids play at, and other very nefarious reasons.
What Jason Hunyar found was Flock employees were looking at a lot of cameras that were in the children's gymnastics room at the Jewish Community Center, as well as cameras that were at the pool, cameras that were at a fitness center. And he basically dumped a lot of these documents and wrote a Substack post that was like, why are Flock employees monitoring our children? And that set off this, frankly, show in Dunwoody, where all the residents were like, why are Flock employees looking at these cameras? Flock employees are not really supposed to be looking at these cameras. Why are these cameras connected to this network in the first place? We didn't know that this was happening. We didn't sign up for this. What's the deal?
Last week, we received disturbing news that police in Texas illegally accessed data from automatic license plate readers used throughout Illinois. They did so to track down a woman regarding an abortion care related matter.
Illinois leaders say a sheriff's office near Dallas tapped in to more than 83,000 license plate readers nationwide, looking for a woman they say had a self-administered abortion in Texas. The Johnson County Sheriff told an independent outlet that this was a safety issue and the woman was being searched for as a missing person, not as a suspect of a crime. Criminologist Alex Del Carmen says this raises big questions about surveillance and politics.
The problem here is that if they went for an abortion-related case, they will go for absolutely anything.
So this isn't just mass surveillance. It's not just, let's look at this license plate and let's fight crime. This is a camera that has very unique capabilities, and they can do a lot more than just read a license plate. That is also why I personally am kind of concerned about this. I'm concerned about leaving my house and passing by these cameras and not knowing where the information is going that it captures, not knowing what the information is going to be used for, not knowing what the future could hold for that camera. Because maybe today it's just going to be used to track license plates. Maybe today it's only going to be used to fight crime. But what about in the future? What are the implications of us allowing these cameras in our communities? And some people will argue and say, well, it's no different than carrying around a phone or having a Ring camera or an Alexa in your house. But I would argue that it's a lot different, because the people that choose to own those things, they are choosing to own those things. They're making that choice, and they're bringing those things into their home. These cameras, we don't have a choice. It is our tax dollars that are paying for them, but somehow we don't have a say in it. They just put these cameras up without informing the public, without letting the public know what they're going to be used for, why there's a camera on every corner now. And I guess the community is just left dealing with it. And the community is also left not knowing how that information that it is capturing 24/7 is going to be used. Because when you have a phone and you have a Ring camera and you have an Alexa, you kind of know that there's not a room full of people accessing that information, or at least there's not supposed to be. That device is in your control. You are the one that is supposed to have access to it, so you can kind of control that. But when you have something like a flock camera that is just, pulling data and is just watching everybody and everything that passes by it, and you have a room full of people accessing that information, again, it comes down to who actually controls that information, especially considering when it's very easy to hack into, and anybody walking by can just tap into it, pull the information, modify it, and do whatever they want with it. But then you also have people that say, well, if you're not committing crimes, you don't have anything to worry about. And I would argue that that's also not true, because we are now seeing that AI gets it wrong, and it gets it wrong pretty often. We're also seeing that with these flock cameras, where people are being wrongfully convicted or wrongfully targeted, and the police will see what the flock camera shows them. Maybe AI gets it wrong and it makes the wrong connection, and the next thing you know, you got police knocking on your door and they are arresting you for a crime that you did not commit. And there's another website that you can actually go on and you can look up your license plate number, and you can see if it's been tracked by a flock camera, and you can also see if anyone has accessed it to investigate crimes. And I did that. I ran my license plate in this website, and I found out that sure enough, my license plate had been tracked, and it has also been accessed to investigate crimes. Now, what happens if I just happen to be in that area at the time that this thing took my license plate, and I just happen to fit the description of someone that committed a crime in that area, and I got profiled, and they came to my house and they arrested me because there was a connection there? What happens if the information that that camera and AI presents is compelling enough that I am charged for a crime that I did not commit? We don't have to ask ourselves what the answer to that question is, because that kind of stuff is already happening.
A local automotive journalist says he spent days unknowingly being tracked by police after license plate cameras mistakenly identified the test vehicle he was driving as stolen.
Hello, sir. Can you come out to me, please?
Joel Fetter.
Is it just you and the wife?
And his wife.
Both of us? Both of us.
Were suddenly surrounded.
I was parked here. There was a car here, so I couldn't just drive away.
Even a week and a half later, he still can't believe it.
And I legitimately looked at my wife and I was like, I wasn't even speeding. Like, there's nothing I did wrong.
That certainly didn't stop things from getting tense.
Are you armed at all? No? Okay, is this your car?
That's because the plates were flagged by an emerging surveillance network of flock cameras. And not just before this stop.
Hit on our license plate readers the other day, too.
The manufacturer plate for New Jersey has 2 big numbers, 2 little numbers, and 3 big letters, okay? 3410 DTM was my plate, but what got flagged was 34 DTM.
A Palm Coast woman wrongly accused of causing a deadly crash on I-4 is now suing 2 state troopers.
Lindsay Isaacs and her attorney are in Tallahassee today, meeting with the Attorney General's office about her case.
She was accused of killing 3 people and spent 13 days behind bars. Now, Lindsay Isaacs is suing the Florida Highway Patrol investigators, who she says got it all wrong. This is the federal lawsuit filed Monday in U.S. District Court. In it, her attorneys write the two investigators, quote, fabricated evidence of vehicle damage, swore to false statements, and ignored readily available exculpatory evidence that pointed to another driver. According to the lawsuit, she spent 13 days behind bars, including time in solitary confinement.
Sergeant Jamie Milliman with the Columbine Valley Police Department showed up to a woman's home and claimed he had video evidence proving she stole a package. Milliman used the Flock safety cameras to track her down. Turns out the allegation was wrong. The woman ended up proving she wasn't the thief, and providing her own video evidence.
And I feel like with more of these cameras going in, and the more that these departments rely on AI and this technology to help them solve these crimes, the more prevalent this kind of stuff is going to become. But here's the thing. This stuff is sold to these departments as this is going to help you out. This is going to help you solve all these crimes. And then it's sold to the public as this is going to help make our communities safer. It's all in the name of safety. And we see this a lot. But if history has proved anything, it is that when things are given to us or presented to us in the name of safety, there's usually an underlying reason for that. And it usually is something that does not have our best interest in mind. Because if these companies and these organizations were really that concerned about safety, they wouldn't be letting all these crime sprees happen. They wouldn't be letting all these people raid these communities and just rob these stores. They wouldn't continue to allow cities and communities to be completely taken over by mobs and mobs of people. And they would not continue to release career criminals back on the street after they've committed 30 or 40 crimes so that they can destroy people's families. So if this really isn't about safety, then what's it actually about? Well, I think to answer that question, all we have to do is kind of look around at some of the other stuff that's going on today. And if you look specifically at flock cameras, you'll find that some of them actually have drones that are associated with them now. And when a flock camera picks up on something, they can deploy these drones and they get dispatched to where the crime has been committed. And these drones can help the departments and stuff solve crimes.
So we did sign into a contract with Flock for the DFR program, who we already have for the LPRs throughout the county. So with this, it's going to integrate with the LPRs that we have. So if we get a stolen vehicle that drives through, it hits it, the drone pilot would automatically get an alert with the GPS coordinates and the location. He or she can hit a button, the drone will go up to the predetermined altitude and fly directly to that, where the pilot can then start searching for the vehicle. We're going to have 4 drones, 4 dots, which is moved to locations. So that once one goes up, it can fly. Once it needs a battery swap, it comes back, lands, we can send the other one right back up, and we can just leapfrog them to keep it in the air almost continuously.
You guys know how I feel about this, and I've never changed. I'm not going to change now. I'm especially not going to change now. When the government overreach,
thank you.
When is it too much? This is
Yes.
too much.
Absolutely.
I cannot. I mean, I will not change. So you can have the vote, but I assure you my vote is no already. We already have drones. We don't need drones that are triggered by the flock cameras.
Now, some people might see that as a good thing. But when you also consider that Tesla is scaling back production on certain cars so that they can ramp up production on the Optimus robot, and they're talking about building a factory, a giga factory, that is capable of producing 10 million robots every single year. And you also consider that robot, or that industry of robots, is going to be valued at over $10 trillion. It's not hard to see how that drone might eventually be replaced with an Optimus robot. And then what kind of situation are we in? Because it seems to me at that point, all of these dystopian movies that we've been seeing for the last 20, 30, 40 years could become reality. And when you think about how close we actually are from that becoming our reality, it is shockingly close. Because there are only 2.5 missing pieces that is keeping that from becoming our reality. And there is one piece in particular that nobody is mentioning, nobody is talking about. And if that piece gets put into place, this dystopian nightmare that has to this point only been confined to these sci-fi movies is going to become our reality. Because let's think about all the things that they currently have that could lead to this police state and this surveillance state. All right, they already have the infrastructure. They have all the AI data centers. There are more and more being built every single day. They have the AI. Those are two key components. They also have Starlink, which means that all of these autonomous robots and these drones and all these flock cameras can tap into Starlink no matter where you are in the world. And that's the internet connection. That's how all this stuff communicates. So we have the infrastructure. It's all there. We also have the flock cameras. We have the surveillance. It's all being put in place. We have not just the flock cameras, but we have the phones and the Alexas and the Ring cameras, and we have the surveillance in our cars. So we have this digital grid that is being created around us. So that part is already in place. So what are we lacking? We're lacking the digital dollar. And that is the 0.5, because we already have cryptocurrency, and that is kind of infrastructure that's already in place, but it's not fully implemented. We still have the actual dollar, the physical dollar. But once the dollar goes away, and we've already heard talks of that, then the digital dollar comes in, it takes over, that gets tied into all the other infrastructure that's already there, and then your money then becomes a controllable asset, not just by you, but by anyone who has access to the information, just like with these flock cameras. And suddenly, the people that control this technology can now put limits on your money. They can cut you off, and they can fully control pretty much every aspect of your life. And the other missing piece, and I would say this is kind of a two-parter, is the digital ID. And with the digital ID, that could be the social credit system, and pretty much everything that comes along with that. And again, this all comes down to control. Because when you have a digital ID, and that gets tied into the social credit system and the digital dollar, it makes it very easy to control pretty much every single person on the planet, because that is how all of this information is tracked. It is all tied back to that digital ID, and as long as your social credit score is kept high and you don't have any bad marks against you, you can participate in society. You're a good little boy, and we will treat you as such, until we tell you otherwise. And what's kind of scary about this is that we've already heard talks about them wanting to roll out the digital ID. And in fact, they're already doing that in certain places around the globe. So I don't think it's too far-fetched to think that they're probably going to want to do that here in the near future. And when they do, and they also implement the one world currency or the digital dollar, that all ties into this infrastructure. And that is 1.5 additional pieces they have to complete this agenda. And that leads us to the very last piece, which is the one thing that nobody's talking about, and that is the reason. They need a reason to implement this stuff. They need a reason for us to want to adopt this surveillance, for us to ask for the digital ID, for us to want the digital dollar and the social credit system. That is the one thing that is lacking, and that is the thing that is the most important. It is the reason. Because all this stuff can be put in place, but that doesn't mean that people are going to be willing to adopt it. And we're seeing that, because we're seeing all these vigilantes out there that are cutting down these flock cameras.
We begin tonight in the high country, where multiple surveillance cameras were destroyed over the weekend. 2 were speeding cameras. The other was a flock license plate reader. It happened in the town of Avon. The damage will likely cost the city tens of thousands of dollars. But when the city posted on social media about it, trying to find out who was behind it, this post was actually flooded with support for whoever cut down those cameras.
What's being called a, quote, senseless act of vandalism has the city's mayor infuriated. Our News Channel 13 reporter Dan Levy visited several locations today in the Collar City where the so-called flock license plate reader cameras took a beating overnight, a number of them absolutely destroyed. It's a crime that seems to have contributed to the already contentious feelings surrounding the use of these cameras. Some say it's an invasion of privacy.
Several damaged flock cameras in Monterey County, renewing a debate about privacy and safety. In Seaside, 2 cameras were seemingly cut down.
The Pismo Beach man is accused of vandalizing controversial license plate reading cameras in Monterey County. The sheriff's office says the 40-year-old damaged 3 cameras from the company Flock in the communities of Lockwood and Bradley.
This is what the Flock cameras look like. Auburn normally has 12 in the city. Now they're down 2.
Flock cameras are back on the news tonight. More of them have been cut down in Houston. Earlier this week, we told you about 2 of the license plate reader cameras vandalized near Washington Avenue. Now 2 more have been found on the ground near Memorial Park. And the damage comes amidst all the controversy over this public surveillance technology.
I think they know that there are going to be enough people that push back on this stuff that it's going to be really hard for them to implement it. It's going to be really hard for them to get everybody to adopt it. And that is where the reason comes into play. And this all comes back to what we've seen throughout our history. Because history has proved that they are very good at creating problems and then selling us the solution. There is no doubt in my mind that in the very near future, as this digital infrastructure continues to be built out and all of these things continue to become a reality, that there is going to be a problem that is created and there's going to be a solution that is sold to us. And there's a very good chance that it is going to be so uncomfortable and so compelling that people will be begging for it. We're already kind of seeing that with the voter ID, because the voter ID is something they've talked about making digital, and people are asking for that because, you know, there's a lot of people that believe election fraud is a thing. There's a lot of people that believe that illegal immigrants should not be voting. They believe that by implementing a voter ID and something digital that you can tie yourself to prove that you're a citizen is going to solve that problem. So as you can see, the problem has kind of been created, which it has, and the solution is kind of being sold to us. And you can also see that there are people begging for it. So make no mistake, when this infrastructure is near complete, this is going to happen. And these 2.5 things are the only things that are standing in the way of all of this dystopian sci-fi stuff that we've been seeing in movies for decades and decades from becoming our reality. So I think it's very important to pay attention to this stuff and watch out for the signs. If we see that there are problems being created and it seems like the solution is going to be something that allows them to implement this police state and this mass surveillance and basically complete this agenda, we should be raising the flag and we should be sounding the alarm, because I think that is the last thing that we want to happen. Because when that happens, all bets are off. Any sense of privacy that we once had is going to be gone. Any sense of peace that we might still have access to is going to be lost. And every piece of independence and freedom that we have right now is going to be gone forever. And there are a lot of people calling this the mark. They're calling it the mark of the beast. They think that this thing, once it's implemented, is going to be the thing that you can't do anything without. You're going to have it to buy, sell, trade. You're going to have it to participate in society. And I think that's true. So at this point, I think it's going to be very important to pay very close attention to the signs, to watch out for the problems, and to look for the reason. And if you're somebody that believes that this is possibly where things are headed, and you don't agree with it, I think right now is also the perfect time to start making our voices heard. And I think it's the perfect time because right now, we still have the upper hand. We still have a lot of freedoms. We have a lot of independence. And in some ways, we're still very united. And we still have the ability to unite. The internet is a great way to do that. We have access to people like never before. So let's use that to our advantage. Let's use that to connect with like-minded people and discuss this stuff so that we can come up with potential solutions so that things never get that far. And that is exactly what I'm doing right now. As a matter of fact, I'm actually compiling a series of documents that I'm going to take to my local council, and I'm going to present this stuff to them. I'm going to ask them if they fully understand what they're getting themselves into when it comes to these flock cameras. I'm going to ask them if they fully understand what this could mean for our future. And I'm going to make it very easy for them to understand. I'm going to make it very easy for them to access. And if they don't, then it is on them. And if they choose to continue to go along with this stuff, and they don't look into this stuff further, then there is no other explanation for them doing that other than the fact that they are intentionally ignoring us, and they don't want to see the truth. And in that case, I think we should also have a say, because our tax dollars are paying for this. And if these people are intentionally ignoring us, and we are paying their salary, I think we should also have a say in that. And what I'm going to do for every person watching this, and for every member of this amazing community that we have created here, is I'm going to put a link to this document in the pinned comment below. There's no email address required. There's no money required. There's no strings attached. I just want you to use this document, and if you don't agree with what is happening around us, I want you to print this out, take it to your local council, and maybe your next community meeting, and I want you to present them with this information. That way, the next time this is brought up, and the next time we voice our concerns, they cannot say that they weren't aware of these problems. They can't say that they weren't aware of these safety concerns. And they can't say that we didn't try to warn them.